Hey freshmen, it is Wednesday evening. I'm getting ready to record your lesson for Thursday. So I was getting ready to do the lesson and I had my glasses ready to go, and I realized you guys are going to constantly see these crazy purple things. So I just want to put my contacts in. So hopefully everything will go fine. Anyway, so we're not going to be in school today, obviously on Thursday, and so I'm going to do the lesson for Thursday, just like I did for Tuesday's lesson. So this is going to be India Part 2. I have a fact of the day for you. I have a couple videos that I want you to watch. I also have a worksheet that I need for you to complete, so I will have to take pictures of the book and upload them to Google Classroom, just the same way that I did for boring book work. So the lesson will probably take you, I don't know, 60 minutes to 90 minutes, give or take, depending on how long it takes you to do the worksheet. I will say that I had somebody who will remain unnamed who had messaged me privately that he had worked on the boring book work with another student, and he just wanted me to know that. I suppose because the answers will be similar, but I don't want you working on the worksheet with anybody else. I want you to do it on your own, and just going to trust you to have some integrity. Not that the person that told me that did anything wrong, but I just want you to know I want you to do this worksheet on your own. I don't want you sharing answers. I want you to come up with the answers on your own. So I will check to see if answers look similar. If you would just make sure that you do that on your own. So here we go, India Part 2. I'm going to pull up my PowerPoint. I've sent you a copy of the PowerPoint in addition to a link to this video and a few other things. So if you would open up your PowerPoint, follow along as I am going through the information with you. So we're going to start out again, India Part 2, and our fact of the day today is the Taj Mahal. I'm actually going to hold up a sticky note that has the spelling on it, see if you can see that, although it's probably backwards, isn't it? Taj Mahal. That is today's fact of the day. You'll see several pictures of the Taj Mahal. Google, as I mentioned before, Google Classroom limits the size of the PowerPoint slide that I can upload. So if we were in class, I'd probably show you a lot more pictures, but I will limit the number of pictures that I show you on the PowerPoint. Also wanted to mention that when you're in Google, when I'm in Google Classroom and I upload a PowerPoint, it translates it to Google Slides, and sometimes the transfer of information looks wonky, like it messes things up sometimes. Sometimes the pictures are in the wrong spot. Sometimes the words are spread out in weird ways. If you're looking at the PowerPoint and it has done that, that's probably why, and I apologize for that. And just like I said on Tuesday, I will make copies of the notes and the definitions, if there are any. I don't think there's any definitions today, but I'll make copies of those so you don't need to write those down. I'll give you a copy of those probably next week after our test. So since I won't see you for class until next week. Also wanted to mention to you, make sure that you come by my classroom per my email on Friday, preferably third period, to collect anything that I need to return to you to include in your study guide for Tuesday's East Asia exam. I need to return a quiz to you. I also need to return a worksheet to you. And then a few people were missing things in their study guide, some odds study guides, some odds and ends, and I want to make sure I get that back to you as well. So anyway, back to the Taj Mahal. So today's fact of the day, Taj Mahal. It's probably one of the most recognizable structures in the world, buildings in the world. It's very, very famous. Let's see here. I'm going to grab a couple of other sticky notes because the spelling of a lot of things is very strange, and you'd have a tough time figuring them out. So let me go over to my fact of the day sheet and read from it for you. All right. The reason I keep doing this is because I've got something in my eye, in my contact. All right. Commissioned in 1632 by the Mughal Emperor Shah Jahan to house the remains of his cherished wife, the Taj Mahal stands on the southern bank of a city called Agra in India. All right, let me show you. So it was the Taj Mahal. The structure itself was commissioned in 1632 by a Mughal emperor of India. That's Mughal. That was the Mughal Empire. And the emperor's name was Shah Jahan. Okay, there's his name, Shah Jahan. Sorry. He commissioned the building of this mausoleum in 1632 in the city of Agra. Agra is spelled Agra, along the banks of a river. Let's see here. The famous mausoleum complex was built. It took 20 years to build the very famous mausoleum complex. It is one of the most outstanding examples of Mughal architecture, which combined Indian, Persian, and Islamic influences. At its center, in the Taj Mahal itself, built of shimmering white marble that seems to change color depending on the sunlight or moonlight. Let's see here. It is one of the world's most celebrated structures, and it is a stunning symbol of India's rich history. Shah Jahan was a member of the Mughal dynasty that ruled most of northern India from the early 16th to the 18th century. In 1612, he married Mumtaz Mahal, which means the chosen one of the palace. And I'm going to put her name up here too. So his wife's name was Mumtaz Mahal, which is where we get the name Taj Mahal. And let me say that again. Mumtaz means chosen one of the palace. So that was his wife's name. She was actually one of 3 wives. He was a Muslim emperor, and thus he had more than one wife. So he had 3 wives, but she was his favorite. Shah Jahan emerged the victor of a bitter power struggle with his brothers, and he crowned himself emperor in Agra in 1628. Sadly, in 1631, Mumtaz Mahal died during childbirth, giving birth to the couple's 14th child. So she was delivering her 14th child. The grieving Shah Jahan, known for commissioning a number of impressive structures throughout his reign, ordered the building of the magnificent mausoleum across the river from his own royal palace in Agra. Construction began, as I said before, in 1632 and would continue for the next 20 years. The chief architect, whose name I'm going to skip, was of Persian descent, who would later be credited with other beautiful structures in India, including the Red Fort in Delhi, and we'll talk about that next week. In all, more than 20,000 workers from India, Persia, and Europe, including the Ottoman Empire, along with some 1,000 elephants, were brought in to build the mausoleum complex. Named the Taj Mahal in honor of Mumtaz Mahal, the mausoleum, which is a place where you bury the dead. That's what a mausoleum is. It's where it's basically a funeral home of sorts. It was constructed of white marble inlaid with semi-precious stones, including jade, crystal, amethyst, and turquoise, forming intricate designs in a technique known as Pietra Dura. In the central dome, a height of 240 feet, was surrounded by 4 smaller domes. 4 slender towers or minarets stood at the corners. In accordance with Islamic tradition, verses from the Quran were inscribed in calligraphy on the arched entrances into the mausoleum. So if you ever go to India and you have a chance to go into the Taj Mahal, you'll see in Arabic, you will see scriptures or portions of the Quran inscribed in the wall. In calligraphy on the arched entrances into the mausoleum, in addition to numerous other sections of the complex. Inside the mausoleum, an octagonal marble chamber adorned with carvings and semi-precious stones housed the false tomb of Mumtaz Mahal. The real sarcophagus, containing her actual remains, is below at the garden level of the Taj Mahal. So when people come through, you'll see a picture of it, when they come through to view her sarcophagus, or the stone casket where her body is, you go through and you walk around it and you see it there, and he's actually buried next to her now. That's not, her body is not in there, nor is his. They are actually buried in identical tombs at the garden level or the bottom level of the Taj Mahal. Let's see here. The rest of the Taj Mahal complex, including a main gateway of red sandstone and a square garden divided into quarters by long pools of water, as well as a red sandstone mosque and an identical building directly across from the mosque. Traditional Mughal building practice would allow no future alterations to be made to the complex. And so, as the story goes, Shah Jahan intended to build a second grand mausoleum across the river from the Taj Mahal, where his own remains would be buried when he died. The two structures were to have been connected by a bridge. It says, in fact, Shah Jahan's third son deposed of his ailing father in 1658 and took power himself. Shah Jahan lived out the last years of his life under house arrest in a tower of the Red Fort in Agra, with view of the majestic resting place that he had constructed for his wife when he died in 1666. He was buried next to her. It is said that he was going to build an identical Taj Mahal, but in black marble, again, on the other side of the river, facing her mausoleum. But his son took power, and that never ended up happening. Today, some 3 million people a year, about 45,000 people a day during peak tourist season, visit the Taj Mahal. Air pollution from nearby factories and automobiles poses a continual threat to the mausoleum's gleaming white marble facade. And in 1998, India's Supreme Court ordered a number of anti-pollution measures to protect the building from deterioration. Factories were closed while vehicular traffic was banned from the immediate vicinity of the complex. So if you go to visit the Taj Mahal, you have to park a pretty good distance away and walk to the Taj Mahal. India has a terrible pollution problem, so I can understand how that would happen. So if you ever have a chance to go visit it, it is pretty epic. There's a photographer that I follow that's in India right now, and he and his photography friends posted on their Instagram story a Be Real photo that they had taken, and you can see the Taj Mahal in the background. I have had one student that actually visited the Taj Mahal. Her name is Grace Heffron. She graduated from Lifeway. And I asked her if I could include the pictures of her at the Taj Mahal in the PowerPoint. She's like, yeah, sure, definitely do it. So I've included a picture of her there. What else was I going to say? If you ever get to go there and visit the Taj Mahal, I'll have a picture of here, but you'll see that everything in the Taj Mahal is symmetrical. It's designed, the lines are beautiful. Most of the stones that originally were part of the structure, I think, have been looted, or a lot of them have been taken out over the years. My impressions of seeing tours of it, you don't really see any of that anymore. It's incredible. The tile work and everything is incredibly beautiful, but I didn't notice any semi-precious jewels and that sort of thing. But anyway, her tomb was supposed to be laying right in the middle of the Taj Mahal entryway, and then his is right next to hers. And so it looks like it's everything else in the whole building is symmetrical except for that, except for his sarcophagus. There is a video that I would like for you to watch that is associated with this particular fact of the day. It was a video made for children, an elementary age, but it does a good job of telling the story of the Taj Mahal. So I do want you to watch that. It's just 2 or 3 minutes long. And so in Google Classroom, there is a Google Doc that says fact of the day, Taj Mahal, and I want you to write your 5 facts. I should have said this before, but if you have something to write with that you can scratch it down and then go back in and upload that along with your daily assignment log. Okay, all right, so moving on. Let's see here. Real quick review. India is a very mysterious place, a mysterious continent. The way of life there, the practice of Hinduism, the food that they eat, the sounds, the smells, even the appearance, if you were to drive through the streets of India, are very, very different than what you will experience here. It's very, very hot, especially in Delhi at certain times of the year. Because it is such an old country and a developing country, they don't have access always to the same luxuries and things that we do, even the wealthiest people. My neighbors across the street who are from India, the longer they live in the United States, the harder it is for them to go back and visit family, because they have become so used to air conditioning, having as much water available to you as you need. the ability to make money. The ability to make money, even for those who are in the middle caste system, there is restricted. Manish told me he worked, I don't know, 60 or 80 hours a week, and he couldn't save enough money for a car. And I was like, what? I mean, my family growing up, everybody in the family had a car. I mean, they weren't expensive cars, but we all had cars. Things like trash pickup. There are unbelievable slums all over the large cities of India. So everything about it's just very, very different. I mean, you can find that here in the United States as well, but generally speaking, it's a very, very different culture. Hinduism, the religion of India, the largest religion of India, is very much a part of their culture. So on Tuesday, I went through a list of fast facts with you that range from everything from it's the 7th largest country in the world to where abortions are performed there. It's the largest English-speaking country. They have a huge Muslim population. We talked about their seasons, the 6 seasons, the world's largest tea producer, just a whole bunch of random things, Bollywood. And so I included those on the slide again, just as review. And then the next slide that you'll see is a picture of an Indian couple getting married. I'd like to show this particular video. It is a professional photography video of a Hindu wedding. And I want you guys to watch the video. There's also a Google Doc that you will see associated with today's assignment that says observations about a Hindu wedding. And what I want you to do is, as you're watching the video, while the wedding ceremony or ceremonies, because it's more than one, is so very visually different than an American Christian wedding, yet at the same time, there are a lot of similarities, whether it's family or somebody that's a priest that is overseeing the ceremony. There's an exchanging of food. There are a lot of things that are similar, but visually there's a lot of things that are very different, from what they're wearing to all that stuff. So I want you to look for 5 similarities between a Hindu wedding and an American Christian wedding. And I want you to list those on that Google Doc. Again, you probably will have to take some notes on a piece of paper and transfer it over. But you'll see it'll say, watch the Indian wedding at this point. So watch the Indian wedding. And then when you're finished with that, the next slide is, I just grabbed several different pictures of various Bollywood advertisements, from movies to dance-offs to soap operas to rom-coms. It was kind of difficult to find pictures that were not inappropriate, because there's a lot of that stuff going on in Bollywood as well. But I found some that are sort of okay, and I just wanted you to look at that. And then I also have a picture of Nick Jonas and his wife, Priyanka Chopra. Most of you all know who the Jonas Brothers from, well, they were kind of my kids' generation, but they all kind of went and did their own thing, and Nick Jonas ended up going solo, and he ended up marrying Priyanka. I'm going to say they've been married 5 or 6 years now, and she's a very, very famous Indian actress. She was actually Miss World in 2000, so he married himself a beauty queen. She's probably 10 years older than him, but I have a couple of pictures of them on there. Now, the Jonas Brothers, their dad was a pastor. I'm not sure what denomination or anything, but they sort of grew up in the church and identified as Christians, but I'm assuming that they are, but I don't know beyond what they said, but they've definitely kind of hit the glam life, or the 2 of the 3 of the brothers, and are kind of living the Hollywood, whatever life. But there is a picture that I grabbed from Nick and Priyanka's wedding, and they decided to observe a traditional Indian wedding and a traditional Christian wedding. And so to be Indian is generally speaking to be Hindu. Not always, but it really is. It's like the rest of the world says, oh, you're American. They think, oh, you're a Christian, even though that's not the case. But people associate our civilization with Christianity and the Indian civilization with Hinduism. And so I wanted you to see the two different pictures. It's really kind of funny. So in the Indian wedding, everybody's wearing Indian traditional clothing, including the bride. She's not wearing white. She's wearing red. And the brothers all have these things on their heads, and it's really interesting. And then there's also a picture of their traditional Christian wedding. I think they had both ceremonies in India. And honestly, personally, I think as a bride, she looks more beautiful in the traditional. I don't know. You can take a look at it and see what you think. I just want to show you because we talked about it the other day. Okay, the next slide is just going to summarize some of the physical characteristics of India. And I'm going to read through this pretty quickly, but obviously India is the main country on the subcontinent, the Indian subcontinent. There's also Pakistan and Nepal and Bhutan and Bangladesh and whatnot. But India is the primary country on the Indian subcontinent because it's surrounded by 3 large bodies of water. On the west side is the Arabian Sea. On the southern part of the subcontinent is the Indian Ocean. And then up on the east side is the Bay of Bengal. And so because of how it's located, kind of like Texas, it is very susceptible to monsoons. And as we talked about before, there are 6 seasons in India, a summer and winter monsoon season, in addition to spring, fall, winter, and summer. And so because of the nature of where the water is located, it kind of encourages that. There's also 2 primary river systems that flow out of the Himalaya mountains. If my hand was India, the top part of it are the Himalaya mountains. There's a tectonic plate there. It's where Mount Everest and everything is. And then up here, the Tibetan Plateau. And so there are 2 major river systems that flow out of the Himalaya mountains southward, and south and east actually, or they flow south. One flows west, one flows east. The Indus, I think I have I did not put it on here. I'll put one on there. I'll put a map on there that shows the Indus River Valley is on the northwestern part, and it actually kind of goes through Pakistan. And then the Ganges River flows out of the Himalayas and goes east and dumps into the Bay of Bengal. I think it cuts through Bangladesh. And they both flow out of the Himalaya mountains, just like the Yangtze River and the Yellow River flow through China from the Tibetan Plateau on east. So that whole area there has produced all kinds of water and wonderful lush farmlands for those 2 countries. Both of those river systems, the Indus River and the Ganges River, are considered holy in Hinduism. And so there is a custom where I didn't know this, Kanupriya told me this, but Kanupriya, my neighbor, she had twins. She had a boy and a girl, and they're Indian. And it is customary for Indian families to shave the hair of their children's or their toddlers' heads before they turn 2 years old, and they take that hair and they sprinkle it into the Ganges or the Indus River, but usually the Ganges River, kind of a circle of life giving back thing. And so I don't know if you've ever noticed this, but oftentimes I'd noticed it but didn't know why. I'd see a lot of Indian children in Walmart or the grocery store or wherever, and their heads would be shaved, or they'd have really, really short hair for their age. And I thought, I wonder what that's all about. And so if they can't physically do it themselves, they will mail the hair back to their family in India, where they will sprinkle the hair in the river. But the Ganges River in particular, we'll talk more about that later. And then, of course, much of India is covered in jungles and tropical rainforests, basically, or tropical forests. And in fact, as we mentioned before, the story of the Jungle Book actually takes place in one of those central Indian forests or jungles, and is an example of that. There's a slide here that shows you a map of the various forests and jungles of India. It's all over the place, really. But the central one, I believe, is the one where the Jungle Book was from. And in addition, because there is unusual and lots of healthy, rich forests there, there's a lot of interesting animal life, some of it unique to India, some of it not. But and I've included some of the pictures of some of those animals. So I've got a Bengal tiger there, an Indian wolf. It looks a little bit different. It looks like a little bit like a dingo in Australia. The Indian rock python, the sloth bear, which is what Blue is in the Jungle Book, the Black Panther, not the movie, but if you look really closely at this picture, you can actually see his spots through his really deep, rich black fur. He is also in the Jungle Book. He is the panther that escorts Mowgli out of the jungle, tries to protect him from Shere Khan. And then also the Indian elephants. Indian elephants are much smaller than the African elephants. And elephants are also revered in Hinduism in a different way than the cows are. But in their festivals and their celebrations, oftentimes they paint the elephants and that sort of thing. And also the wolf and the Indian rock python are also featured in the Jungle Book. Mowgli was raised by wolves. And then the Indian rock python is that snake in the movie that's always trying to hypnotize him. Anyway, let's see here. And then lastly, as far as the notes go, I did just a real short little brief overview of the history of India. The worksheet that you're going to do is going to cover some of this information. But essentially, India has one of the most oldest civilizations, kind of like Egypt and Africa. India has one of the older civilizations. Let me see if I can find it here. The Harappan civilization, which developed in the Indus River Valley, dates back all the way to almost the era of Abraham in Mesopotamia. And I suppose, I'm assuming that after the Tower of Babel, when people were scattered, that some of that scattering sent them east towards India, and that they settled in that valley because it's very fertile, and there's a lot of archaeological evidence of farming communities that lived in the Indus Valley. I remember Mrs. Lefevre talking about it in world history, in her world history class, which I think that you guys had in 7th grade. And then one of the most famous empires of the Indian subcontinent were the Aryans that came down from Central Asia in 1500 BC, which is about the time, I'm doing the math in my head, I think that's about the time that the Israelites left Egypt. The word Aryan, as I mentioned before, has a lot of weird connection to the idea of the superiority of the white race that the Nazis pushed and that sort of thing. I don't know that there is a connection, but some suggest that there is. But the Aryans introduced Sanskrit, which is the Hindi language which is kind of like the official language. Well, it's not the official language. Yeah, I think it is, of India. English is also spoken in India a lot. But anyway, Hindi is derived from Sanskrit. Sanskrit is a really, really old written language. The Aryans also introduced the caste system of social structures, and they also intermingled their religious beliefs with the religious practices of the Indian subcontinent, which kind of started to develop some of these Hindu structures. And then after the Aryans, it was basically successive empire after successive empire after successive empire would come into the Indian subcontinent. They were pretty isolated because of the water and the Himalaya mountains. Alexander the Great even made it as far as India. But if we push ahead, eventually after Islam is birthed in the Arabian Peninsula, eventually Islam also ventures towards India and begins to conquer mostly in the northern part of India. And then for instance, the Taj Mahal was actually built by a Muslim emperor in India. So the Muslims conquered India, various parts of India, from the late 600s AD to the 1500s AD, for quite a period of time. Finally, in the 1600s, England comes along and begins to colonize, begins to influence the Indian subcontinent, and then in 1947, India finally gained their independence from the British. So all kinds of history there. We're just going to skim over the surface of that. Okay, let's see here. I think I'm gonna, there's a whole nother section on the PowerPoint that I think I'm gonna save for another time. We're gonna dive pretty deep into Hinduism and the caste system in India, which dramatically affects their culture today. But I think I'm gonna stop with that. Let me look ahead here really quickly. Yeah, I think I'm going to stop with that. I think that'll give you plenty to do, coupled with getting prepared for your test next week. So make sure you fill out the various Google Docs, that you watch the couple other videos that I have associated with this lesson, that you do your fact of the day, and that you complete your worksheet. Completing the worksheet is not homework. It's actually part of the lesson today. So I will upload pictures of the textbook, so that you can do that at home without having your book. So anyway, I'll see you guys on Friday, most likely. Bye.